Big welcome to the Young Hearts Run Free podcast. Jonny Wolf, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate your time and getting to know a bit about me and my running background.
Absolutely. Well, we've been aware of you. In fact, we first became aware of you properly when you came and ran our world famous Chilli Trail Race, where we got to meet you. But we also don't know a hell of a lot about you, Jonny, and that's always our first question that we pose to our guests to find a little bit more about who is Jonny Wolf. So I'm going to pass over to you for the response.
Yeah, not a problem. So originally I'm from Kelso in the Scottish borders. Haven't lived there in a long time though. I've kind of moved around. I'm a bit of a nomad. Growing up, I was definitely an active kid. Couldn't sit still. Played a bit of every sport. Played basketball, rugby, football, everything like that. And I really just started getting into my running about 11 years old. Ran a local race in Kelso and came second and thought, hey, this is pretty fun. So kind of things progressed from there. There's a local running club down in Kelso that I got involved with. During the summers, I would run every Saturday in the Border Games circuits. And then during the winter, I'd run cross country with the City of Edinburgh running team. And then that progressed from there because I started to win a few races. I ran for the East of Scotland in the cross country. And then also got asked to go down to London to run in the London mini marathon for Scotland as well. I kind of did that until I was about 17 and 18, got a bit fed up with running. I kind of took a back seat. And I got really involved in doing like outdoor sports. So I left Scotland when I was 18, moved to Northern Ireland, got a job as a outdoor sports instructor where I taught kayaking and sailing and windsurfing, mountain biking, archery, a bit of everything really. And I did that for 4 or 5 years before thinking it's time to get up and move again. It kind of gets in this cycle that I don't sit still for very long in one place. And in 2017, I decided to make a move over to Australia. And I was, in Australia, working as a kayak guide out there, taking people on dolphin and whale tours, just on the kayak, dream job, right? Yeah, out in the sun and out in a kayak, can't beat it. But that's actually when I met my partner, Tess. She was over on holiday. She's originally from Canada, where we're living now. And we met there 6 years ago. And ever since, we've been traveling the world and working in different places. We moved back to Canada after Australia, worked on a ski hill for a bit, but then COVID hit, so we lost our jobs, decided, right, what's the next move? And we thought, let's not get stuck in Canada during COVID. So we thought, right, let's go and sit on a beach in the Caribbean. And we got jobs down in the Caribbean. But then obviously COVID hit the island. Again, we lost our jobs, had to move back to Canada. I still had 6 months left in my work visa, so I just picked up a construction job for a short period of time before we decided let's move to Scotland, and then spent the last couple of years in Scotland, up on the Isle of Skye for a while, and then in Edinburgh, and now we're back in Canada again. So kind of all over the place. It's hard to kind of pinpoint where we'll be in the next few years, but that's kind of my life story up to now, right?
Brilliant. Fantastic. Nomadic.
Yes, very, very much so. Yeah.
It's we've not even touched on running yet, and yet I've got a ton of questions that are nothing about running, but maybe we can save them for another time. I love beaches and stuff. Me.
Yeah, I love being in the sun,
job
right?
in Australia. There's no things that could eat you kicking about or that, was there?
I mean, there was always shark sightings and stuff, right? But yeah, you get used to it, right? It's like running in Canada. You might see a bear, but like it's going to happen, right? You just kind of have to run with the wildlife and be out. If you're going to be outdoors, things are going to happen. You just have to be prepared.
Embrace it. Well, on that, be prepared. What is your preparedness in Canada for running in the trails?
Bear spray. Bear spray. Yeah. Whenever you go out to the mountains here or trail running, you should always have bear spray with you. It's just a simple precaution, right? And you never know what you're going to run onto. There's cougar sightings, there's bear sightings, there's a bit of everything. So
Explain the concept of bear spray. It's not just like a can of Lynx Africa, is it? What is it?
It's like a big can of pepper spray. So yeah, it's a deterrent. You know, it's you only really use it if a bear charges at you. Otherwise, you just try and make as much noise as you can when you're out in the trail.
Okay.
Think to yourself, you know, something.
Yeah.
Always
I hope you never have to use it.
No.
I have a question. It's been in my head since that day at the Chilli. When were you last clean shaven, Jonny Wolf?
Oh, that is. So I made a deal actually with Tess when I met her that she'll never see my chin. So it's been well over 6 years.
Okay, man.
Yeah,
okay.
It's probably like good over 10 years that I've had a beard or some kind of scruff on me, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I met Tess at Mulgai at start of West Island Way one year. How and at the Chilli. How is Tess doing?
She's doing great, yeah. We've had a great summer together. We travelled Europe and we worked on just smaller organic farms when we were travelling Europe for our accommodation and food. And then we decided that we were going to run the Trail Mount Blanc in the summer as well. For people that don't know Tess, she wouldn't class herself as a runner. I think she's a trail runner, but she keeps on saying no, she's not. But she, within the space of a year, she went from like couch to 180k over the TMB. You know, right? It was quite impressive. So, yeah, she's doing great. Yeah, and we're just loving life, you know.
Well, before we go any further, then tell us about Trail Mont Blanc, a recent adventure. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so as you guys have probably seen the YouTube video of Jeff Peltier. And him and his girlfriend done it over 4 nights around the TMB or around Mount Blanc Massif, right? So yeah, we thought we could probably do that. Tess made a comment and that she could do it, and then a couple of days later we were booking the hostels up in the mountains, and yeah, started training for it and everything like that. We did it over 5 nights, but some of the most like breathtaking trails you'll ever run. And I've run quite a few places around the world, but that has to be up there with the most spectacular.
Yeah. Your Instagram this year has been quite phenomenal.
Absolutely.
Off the scale stuff.
Point. Yeah.
I feel we're missing something here. When did you realise that you had a knack for running pretty well? When was that in that evolution? Because you've been a lot of places.
Yeah.
Were you always starting to pick up running, or has that been a more recent sort of thing that you've went serious with?
I mean, like growing up, because I grew up like doing track and cross country, I was always kind of like into running, but it definitely took a back seat when I started doing outdoor sports. I maybe ran once or twice a week, but it was never far. It was maybe a couple kilometers here and there. Like I'd never ran over 10 kilometers before going to Australia. And then I actually just came across randomly Trail Runner Nation, you know, the podcast in America. And I randomly came across that in 2017. And I thought, that's like people are doing these crazy distances over the mountains. That's really cool. And thought like maybe I could do that. I get very into my own head and very determined, thinking, yeah, sure, like I'm ready to do that. And it's only 5 times 10k, right? It's that kind of logic that my head goes to. So I actually entered a race when I moved to Australia. It was a 50k race. I'd done one training run that was 23 kilometers or something like that. So it wasn't far. It was a very flat run that I did, and then didn't realize that a trail race is going to have hills in it. I didn't even know what hill training was back then. You know, like so used to just running around the track. I was very naive going into it. My nutrition was a Cliff Bar and an energy gel for 50k, and I tell you what, that was the biggest disaster of a race I've ever had. And to be honest, it put me off kind of ultra running for a long time. And I didn't race again for another 5 years. So I did one race and then didn't really bother with running because I was like, I'll do it here and there, but never really got into racing properly until I moved back to Scotland.
Okay. Which was in the last couple of years then?
Yeah, 2022.
And that was your next race after that?
Yeah.
Unforgettable attempt in Australia?
Pretty much, yeah. Like living up on the Isle of Skye at the time in Portree. And I think I was just scrolling some races, just seeing what was going on in Scotland, and I came across the Skye Ultra. And it just turned out that it was like 2 days later, and I just emailed the organizer being like, do you need a hand volunteering, like to get involved? Maybe I can help at an aid station. And that's actually when I met Martin Heggie. And everyone that listens probably knows who Martin Heggie is, right? Definitely a popular character in the Scottish scene for sure. And yeah, we sat in an aid station and just sat up all night chatting, running and ultra running. And he told me about a few races. He told me about this podcast. That's the first time I ever heard about you guys. And it just kind of got me hooked, got me kind of thinking again about ultra running, and then went a bit crazy in 2022 and entered everything I possibly could.
Yeah, you're making up for lost time, maybe, is how I describe that, Jonny. So your 2022, what did that consist of then, just for the benefit of our listeners?
So I did the Dirty 30, which is up on the Isle of Skye. Yeah.
Dirty 30.
I did the St Cuthbert's Way down in the Borders.
At the Holy Island.
Say that again, sorry?
At the Holy Island.
Yeah, the Holy Island one. Yeah. And because that's like where I'm kind of from as well, I got to see places of the Borders I've never even seen, which was a really cool, like, first bigger ultra that I've done. It was a really cool experience. And then I moved on. I did the Devil of the Highlands. I did the Loch Ness 24. Obviously done the Chilli Race with you guys, and then I done the Tweed Valley Ultra in the Borders as well. So big 2022.
Well, to be honest, I for some reason, Jonny, I maybe thought that when you hit us at the Chilli, that, you know, how many 10k fast and hilly trail races had you done at that point ever?
0.
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye. Well, I've done it about 150 times, and it doesn't get any easier. But there you go, John. Did you know that? Did you? I thought Jonny was like seasoned. I'm not saying that you aren't, Jonny.
I look seasoned, but I definitely.
I don't know. I wasn't aware of Johnny's story, so thank you very much for sharing that. We shouldn't gloss over the fact that Jonny finished first in that St Cuthbert's Way. He's been very humble in that. Finished 6th in the Devil of the Highlands and finished 3rd in the Tweed Valley Ultra. So 2022 is a pretty good year. But maybe a sign of what was to come, though. So Scotland's been pretty good since the return. It's been a short return, but it's been pretty good. Do you have a coach, Jonny?
No, I don't have a coach actually. Obviously, I had a coach when I was younger, when I was doing track. But there's so much online that I found that helps me, and even just like listening to you guys, I take points, and you know, like you say, like the golden nuggets of people. I'm constantly taking things like that. I have to say, like Stu Johnston's podcast was one of my favourites, because I learned so much off that, especially like his cooling techniques in the West Highland Way. That was so handy for me during my recent races over here when it's like super hot. So like big shout out to Stu. I've learned a lot from him. But then I always try and get involved in the running community. So learning off other runners, even watching YouTube channels like Golden Trail series. I love watching that as well. I just pick up from different points. So
brilliant, and it's good as well because you supported on a number of races as well when you were here. So you pick up things from other crews and you hear what's happening. You mentioned Stu Johnston. A lot of people have commented on Stu's episode to say they picked up so much because he was so giving and he had a different angle on things. I noticed today actually on social media, he's just posted a photograph of a new pair of normal trail shoes.
Ooh,
he's dipping his toe in normal, literally. So
normal. The normal.
Yeah, that's the one.
Normal. I was actually just looking to see because Stu's episode is super popular, because he was really enlightening and open with sharing his knowledge, and I was actually just wondering what episode and number and everything it was, John, so people could refer back to it, but I've not got it to hand.
I'll find that information in the next wee minute.
Good.
Let's ask Jonny though, You mentioned a number of things. Are there people that have inspired you throughout your running journey?
I mean, I definitely wouldn't be where I am right now without my parents. I think growing up, every weekend they would take me to a race, summer and winter, even cross country in Scotland in the winter. It's never good weather, but they would always be there. And even if you're 2 miles away, you could always hear my dad shouting and cheering me on, right? So, yeah, I'd say they really pushed me to who I am.
Let's give them names. Let's give
Yeah.
them names. None of this mum and dad stuff.
Yeah, so Ken Wolf and Janet Wolf. Big shout out.
Well done, folks. Everybody needs a
Yeah.
Ken and a Janet. Yeah.
Sure do.
Y'all Ken
Awesome.
a Ken. Yeah. Yeah, I think like more recently, like I said, like I've learned a lot from Stu's podcast there. You've got the obvious ones like Remy Bonnet and, you know, Killian as big inspirations, especially in the trail community. But I think closer to home, Heggie, like bringing back to Martin Heggie, he's been a really good friend of mine since we met at Skye. We talk pretty much every week. Even though we're on other sides of the world, we're still in contact with each other. I was texting him this morning about his backyard ultra. The guy's an animal, right? He runs across Scotland, and then a few weeks later, he's doing a backyard ultra. So, yeah, big inspiration from that guy. He's always pushing the boundaries.
Brilliant. I think he would hold the mirror. I think he'd hold the mirror back up to you. I spoke to Martin recently at the Auchterarder Running Festival, where he had a brilliant weekend. He had a great weekend.
Oh, he did, yeah.
It's always lovely to see him, and he was speaking very highly of the way you've been talking about him. He was speaking about you in the same way. So nice that connection happens through running too, isn't it? So
exactly right. Yeah, just
brilliant.
a chance meeting, right? It's
totally these serendipitous moments.
Yeah.
And did I hear Martin saying that he was thinking of popping over to see you sometime?
There's been talk about that.
Been chatting that, hasn't there?
Yeah.
Wow.
We'll see.
Tell you what, I wouldn't want to put Martin up against a bear.
I know, right? Yeah, that bear would be in trouble, hey?
Totally, by the way. More than.
Yeah.
Bear spray, what's this?
Yeah. Come have it. Come have it.
Oh, man.
Awesome.
I know. It's good because I almost feel a wee bit of like, because of the Young Hearts Run Free thing and that connection that Martin made with you and bringing us into that, it feels like we're kind of invited to the party. Love it.
That's it. You're always invited.
Love it. Fantastic.
Season 8, episode 11, Stuart Johnson. For anybody wanting to go back, and
definitely worth a listen. Definitely
have a listen, and
cook up your own gels.
Exactly. We've also got to do as well. You mentioned about being a bit nomadic and doing things, but when was the current move to Canada? When was that seed planted? We spoke about races in Scotland. When was the move to Canada going to happen? When was the planning starting, Johnny?
Yeah, so that it's been on the cards for a while because at the moment we, like myself and Tess, we're just doing work visas and they only last a couple of years. So I just recently got my permanent residency for Canada. At the start of this year, and we thought after the summer we'll move out to Canada, and I've got 5 years to be here, so loads of time. Yeah,
brilliant. And we had a wee quick chat about before we hit record about jobs and things like that. Do you want to speak about jobs in Canada? What's your plans?
Yeah, so I actually just recently got offered a job in the local running store here called Strides. So yeah, I'm taking them up on that offer. Start work next week. I mean, it's a great job to have. The running community over here is huge. There seems to be a lot more money in it than there is in Scotland. But everyone's super friendly. I've got on with so many people already in the short time I've been here, and I've met so many good people. I was out for a run on my first week here in the mountains and met 3 trail runners and just got chatting with them, ran with them for a while, and now John has become one of my good friends over here. And we're constantly talking about trail running and different races that we can get involved in. So, yeah.
Fantastic, man. Is it all trail running though, or is there also track stuff going on as well? Yeah.
No, there's a lot of track running and a lot of road running as well. Like Calgary has its own marathon and everything like that, so that's obviously huge. But we're only an hour away from the Rocky Mountains here, so there's a lot of trail running that happens out here. There's incredible mountain runners out there that live out in Canmore and Banff kind of area.
Yeah. And has Tess picked up the baton from the TMB? Is she still lacing up?
Well, now that her toenails are slightly recovered from the TMB, she's she's getting back at it. She definitely found the TMB hard, right? As anyone does. It's a brutal course. And she took a month off, but now she's getting back in. If I go out trail running in the mountains, she'll come and do a shorter loop, or we'll go and run together if we're doing a bit of a longer one together. So yeah, she's still into running, definitely.
Brilliant, man. And what a place to be doing it. It just sounds like a dream, an absolute dream, you know. Can we speak about the Lost Soul 100?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you, because I would do a rubbish job of it, can you explain what the Lost Soul 100 is? There's a wee clue in the title, but can you explain what it's all about?
Yeah, so the Lost Soul Ultra, there's 3 different race categories. You've got the 100 mile, the 100 kilometer, and then a 50k on the Sunday. It's set down in southern Alberta, quite close to the Montana border. But usually when you think of Canada, you think of the mountains and the trees and everything like that. Down in southern Alberta, it's very kind of arid and desert-like. Very hot conditions. You're in a bit of a valley of like an old riverbed, and you're running in what they call the coulees, which is an old sandy sediment, old sandy river sediment. It's probably a good way to put it. But these are very punchy climbs, very steep. We're talking 150 to 300 feet, so not big climbs, but very steep. And you had 16 hills to conquer on every lap, and you had to do 3 laps of this 50k course. It was a very, very hot day. It was like the hottest on record that they've had in over 20 years of running it. Down in Softball Valley, the temperatures were 34 degrees, and then up in the coulees, we're talking 38 degrees. So very, very hot day. Yeah.
Well, and you mentioned sandy. What was on your feet? This is a good question for somebody who's going to work in the running store.
I know, right? So I run in Asics Tobacco. It's a shoe that works for me, and I saw it was on sale, so I got a couple pairs, you know, as you do. We go through a lot of running shoes, so any kind of bargain, I'll take it. And I'm Scottish as well, right? So save a penny and everything like that.
And I've also got loads of gaiters. Do you use gaiters?
I don't. There were people that were using them there because there is like rattlesnakes and cactus and things on the course as well. So I definitely kicked my share of cactus on the way around. But gaiters might have been a good shout.
I'm not quite sure. Stephen brought up the subject to me about gaiters. I don't think rattlesnakes were part of the issue that we were talking about, though, Stephen, were they?
Oh, rattling stones about inside my shoes, but no rattlesnakes. But then, Johnny, the temperatures there, is that a type of temperature that you were able to train in or adapt to or anything, or was that just a bolt out of the blue? Like for exposing yourself to that temperature?
The Canadian summers are actually quite warm here, especially in Calgary. Like we're talking easily 30 degrees plus. So the few weeks before I ran the Lost Soul Ultra, I was waiting until it was the hottest part of the day, throwing a couple extra t-shirts on or a jumper, and then going out for a run. So just trying to work out how my body reacted to sweating so much and how much salt I was going to be losing, and then just trying to make my nutrition plan a bit more specific for the race, you know.
And that, we're going to be speaking about your nutrition and everything like that, but that's maybe shooting away a bit early. Was it a race that how did you come about choosing that as a race? Was it, were you thinking, no, that's a part of the world I've never been to before, one of the small corners I've not been to?
Yeah. So I think like at the start of the summer, we knew we were going to be in Canada, obviously, and I wanted to do a 100-miler. I've never ran a 100-miler before, so I was like, let's see what kind of works around that time frame. And then that popped up. I got put on the waiting list, and I was on the waiting list for nearly 3 months before I actually got accepted. And then I was like, oh, this is awesome. Let's go and do this, right?
First 100-miler, John, 38 degrees.
Aye, it's tough.
Boy for Kelso.
Exactly, right?
Brilliant.
That's
Brilliant.
Fantastic, Johnny.
Yeah.
What time of the day did it start?
It started at 8 in the morning, but
What's
even then it was 20 degrees. It started off a hot part of the day,
Okay.
and then crept, like, the mid-afternoon was the hottest part. Yeah.
Standing on the start line, what were your hopes?
To finish. Yeah, definitely to finish. But the start line there was so cool. There's a big community there, the trail running community down in Lethbridge. It's amazing. I'd went down for a recce run 3 weeks before, met this guy called David Forrester, who invited me to stay at his place the night before. This guy, exceptional. John, his food was crazy. Like, let's talk about his food for a second.
Yeah,
The guy was a former chef on yachts and things like that. So he's traveled about a lot. He's done 30 years of experience being a chef, and he makes the most incredible pesto pasta ever. Everything fresh from the garden, like the spinach, the basil, everything. His wife made this big fresh loaf, and it was just like the best pre-race food I've ever had in my life. So big shout out to David, and thank you for having me and Tess. 'Cause I'm sure he'll listen to this. So.
Was David also running the next day as well?
Yeah, so David was doing the 100-kilometer race as well. But he volunteered over at Cape Wrath and everything like that, and he's ran Cape Wrath. We had loads to talk about. He was loved to hear about Scotland and a few more races that I've done over there as well. So there was loads to talk about anyway. But anyway, going back to the start line, they had the national anthem, so Canadian national anthem at the start of the race, which was really cool. This old timer, he must have been like 70 or 80, singing the national anthem. Really gives you kind of chills before the race. And then the first leg, you run out of Softball Valley, and they had a bagpiper playing Highland Cathedral, and I'm like, man, just chills, absolute chills going into this race. Yeah. I had a kind of plan in my head that I wanted to get a few miles in before it got too hot, and I maybe got a bit carried away with that, like racing the boy that was in second place. And yeah, but these things happen, I'm always learning. I always learn from a race, and it was my first 100-miler. I had no idea how it was going to go, so yeah, it was an interesting one.
What a start, man. Canadian national anthem, which is a belter.
Aye, right, yeah.
And then Highland Cathedral on the bagpipes. And I know there's a number of Scots who have moved and lived and emigrated to Canada, and they're a very proud nation, us Scots.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I'm getting emotional even thinking about that, man. Awesome. So the reason I asked what your hopes were on the start line, because let's let the cat out of the bag. You finished first. Yeah?
Yes. So
congratulations for that, first of all.
Thank you.
You finished in 23 hours and 42 minutes. So sub 24, the only male to finish sub 24. Was sub 24 even, was it in your sights or at that point? Or when did that come into focus?
I mean, to be honest, actually, I went in with a plan of trying to hit 22 hours. I kind of thought with the train and from doing the recce runs, I think 22 was in my head that I would be able to do it in, but the heat really got to me in the afternoon. There was a huge dropout rate. It was like a 77% dropout rate for the race. So anyone that did finish, fair play to them. I don't understand how some guys were still going after 35 hours. I'm like, that. You guys have been out in the heat 2 days in a row and you're still trucking along. So fair play to those guys as well that they managed to like keep going. Yeah.
Now that heat in the afternoon that you refer to, that scuppered your 22-hour plan by the sounds of it. What did you do to adapt to that then? How did you combat that?
Yeah, so we had a few different techniques. Like I said earlier, I watched Stu Johnson in the West Highland Way when I was crewing for Martin. And one of the things I saw is he got a car sponge and he was just dipping it in the ice bucket at aid stations and just soaking himself in ice water. So that was like one of our big things when I came into an aid station. Tess would have the sponge ready, throwing ice over me. I had an ice bandana, so I was running with that. You know, the bucket hat, got ice put in it. Anywhere I could carry ice, even the buff was on with ice in it. You know, that was kind of the plan. We also tried to use biofreeze as well, which is
I've seen that.
Yeah, so I sprayed biofreeze on my legs, because it's got menthol in it. It kind of tricks your brain into thinking that you're cold. So I'd be going out the aid station shivering at times, even though it was high 30 degrees, you know. So that's kind of like my cooling plan going into it.
All that designed to keep your core temperature down.
Yeah.
I've seen that biofreeze in races that I've done, like Boston Marathon, Chicago Marathon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure Chicago had a bit that you ran through that was like, you know how you run through these bits that have got mist?
Aye.
With water, but it was biofreeze.
Well, I tell you one thing actually, because I'd put biofreeze on, and then we were using a sponge to sponge myself down. Kind of forgot about the biofreeze, rubbed the sponge all over my legs and everything, and the next time I came into the aid station, biofreeze or the sponge straight over my face, and my eyes were stinging. I'm like, Tess, what's on that sponge, man? It's like brutal. So yeah,
you're like breathing dead easy.
Yeah,
like when you put Albus oil.
Yeah, exactly. It was that was tough. The eyes are. I think there's a picture of me somewhere just after doing it, and I'm squinting pretty hard. You know. It's,
man, that's mental.
Yeah, mental. Nice.
Sorry, man, that was my dad's joke for the week.
We should also say, when Johnny mentions the buff with ice in it, Johnny's talking about a sexy buff.
Oh yeah.
Johnny's a great ambassador for Young Hearts Run Free, and it's very much appreciated, Johnny. Thank you.
I think there'll be room on. I know you've not even started this job yet. Could there be room on the counter where the till is, just a wee buff selection?
Oh man, you'd sell out in no time.
Yes, our first Canadian outlet, John.
Brilliant. I've also got to give a wee shout out at this point to our pesto pasta friend, David Forrestal. We hear this finish time: 18 hours, 18 minutes, 18 seconds.
Oh,
yeah.
The stuff of dreams, man. Recently,
that's nice to look at.
Recently, our friend John Robb finished the lap down in the Lake District in 11 hours, 0 minutes and 0 seconds.
Yeah,
we thought that was cool,
ago.
And it is cool. But David Forrestal, man, I'd be getting that printed big. 18, 18, 18. That's got to be his lucky number now.
That's his tattoo, isn't it? 18, 18, 18.
Fantastic. Well done, David. Well done,
David. Aye, your pesto pasta sounds no bad as well.
Oh man, things of dreams.
So, getting back out on the trails here, and John already asked you the question about what you had on your feet. When you said it was sandy, I'm just trying to get it in my mind's eye. Was it like was it nice enough trails? Were they groomed? Were they, obviously the steep sections that you referred to sound super tough, but was the terrain?
Yeah, I mean, it was here and there, right? So some of it you were on kind of gravel tracks around a few sections, but then when you got into the climbing section, it's just hard, sandy, kind of. There's not much grip, but you just kind of have to power hike up those hills, kind of thing. There was sections that are very runnable.
Right.
Yeah, as well.
Aye, and you said it was 3 loops, so you were getting used to it. Of course, having came and ran and won the Chilli, that was also a good grounding for such terrain.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, very similar arid conditions up the Chilli Trail.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm just trying to get a picture, and then with it being a lapped route, was the aid stations at stages, or was there a main sort of race hub?
Yeah, so there was two main stations that Tess would go in between.
Right.
Like it all kind of goes around the same river valley.
Got you.
And then they had lots of obviously water stations along the way as well. And every aid station was fully stocked with everything that you ever needed on an aid station, right? They went through half a ton of ice on the Saturday of just throwing ice at people and packing it wherever they could, kind of thing. Yeah.
Was that the biggest challenge? The heat.
I think so. Yeah. I feel like mentally I was quite prepared for the race, but the heat was definitely hard in the afternoon. I got super dehydrated. I don't think I peed for over 8 hours during the race, like when in the heat of the day. So,
well, let's go there. Let's talk about nutrition and hydration. You spoke about aid stations and had everything that you needed. What was Jonny Wolf using from the start to the finish to fuel yourself?
So Tailwind was I always had Tailwind in the bottle, water in the other bottle, and then I used Precision Hydration gels. And the plan was just to use that for as long as I could. I knew it was going to be... Sorry.
Wait a wee minute. What's at the aid stations though? Are you picking up from there or just ignoring them?
Say that again.
The stuff at the aid stations, were you picking up there, or were you just ignoring that and sticking to Tailwind and Precision Hydration? So most of the time I was just sticking to what I had at the start of the race. But then as the race went on, I couldn't stomach the gels, and I couldn't even stomach the Tailwind anymore. I think I just lost my palate, and obviously the heat was very hard. And then I moved on to just getting watermelon from the aid stations and salty crisps. That's all I could really stomach during the day was watermelon and crisps. Were you still able to take on just plain water? Is that okay?
Yeah, I could take on ice water, but the ice would be melted within a few minutes, and you'd be drinking warm water by halfway around the route,
Wait a minute, a couple of things. What flavour of Tailwind's your favourite?
So I was using lemon.
Lemon?
Yeah,
okay.
I actually just tried that Courtney DeWalter watermelon one, and I quite enjoyed that one actually. But I don't know how much of it I could realistically drink if I was racing.
It's good for a wee change though, isn't it?
It's good to mix it up. Yeah,
the palate. And watermelon's a popular one, eh? I like to know there's something that when I'm at the aid station, it's like, melon. I don't know.
It's just so easy to palate. It's full of water. It's got a wee bit of sweetness, but it's not too sweet, which is nice. Yeah.
Were you taking on extra salts or anything? Was it just what your electrolytes were in your Tailwind?
No, I had salt tabs as well. Just those peach chews, the salt sticks. Yeah, salt sticks. Yeah. So I try and crush kind of 3 or 4 of those every hour as well.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. John?
Yeah,
I can't believe you didn't go for what was Jonny Wolf in.
I'll leave the dad stuff to you.
I didn't even think that's dad. I just thought that was a good segment that we missed out on there. But anyway, retrospectively, that's what that was.
Yeah.
Okay. On the salt tabs thing, you mentioned you were taking a few an hour. Do you feel you got that right, or did that play into being not peeing? You know what I mean? I'm still new to the salt tabs thing. I'm not really a fan of them, but I know people are using them. Did you feel you got that right? Were you needing as many salt tabs as that?
Yeah, to be like yourself, actually, John. I'm quite new to ultra running, so I'm just trying to work out what works for me, and then every race is going to be different. I know for the marathon that I did 2 weeks before the race, the salt tabs was perfect, but maybe it wasn't right for the Lost Soul Ultra. It's really hard to know because it was just so hot, and I don't know if that was just a factor in me just being so dehydrated. Like obviously it's a big factor, but I'm not a nutritionist or anything like that. I'm still trying to work out what just works for me. And I don't really have a coach to tell me that's wrong or that's right. It's just going to work out what's good for you. So
you're gleaning. Now you're gleaning all this information from different sources. in your new job, you'll come into contact with a lot of people who are experienced, and you sound like the type of guy who's all ears for learning new bits of information from whatever source you can get it from. Sorry, John.
You know, I was going to say, the pair of you, the other person, is Martin Heggie. I'm talking about the pair of you. It's like, I remember watching a documentary about Mike Tyson, and he was just like a sponge about boxing techniques and the things, listening for the best and learning. You can't, you know what I mean? So the more information that comes with you, you make the right decisions. And if you watch Mike Tyson in the ring, he made the right decisions. He was quite a phenomenal boxer. And there'll be people that are going to come into your running shop and folk will say, yes, Jonny Wolf, he won that Lost Soul 100 miler. So they're going to be coming to you for advice. Do you know what I mean? So, and that's it. It's all about that exchange of information. It's quite brilliant.
Yeah.
Now, when was the Lost Soul 100 miler? When was that?
September the 6th. It was the day after my birthday, you know. Run 100 miles for your birthday, why not?
Happy belated birthday, man. That's a way to celebrate your birthday. How has recovery been since September the 6th? How was recovery for you?
It was actually surprisingly good. I didn't have sore legs after the race, which was a big surprise. My calves were a bit swollen for a few days, and I had a wee bit of a sore foot. But other than that, my legs felt really good, which I was super surprised about, to be honest. But yeah, definitely a good recovery. I'm back in training again, so yeah, and getting out in the mountains.
Yeah. Superb. There was one last question I wanted to ask you about the actual race before we moved on.
Yeah.
You obviously started at 8 a.m. and then finished at about 7:30 the next morning.
Yeah.
Well, how long is it dark for in Canada at that time of year?
So it got dark about 9:30, 10, and then it was bright again just after 5.
Okay.
Or something like that, yeah.
But I was just thinking of that other dimension. You know, you've coped with the heat of the afternoon. I'm assuming it's a little bit cooler during the night without it being chilly.
It was still 16, like 15, 16 degrees, right? So I was still in a t-shirt.
But you're thankful of that.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. When the sun went down, everything changed for me. I started just to like get back into a rhythm. I was definitely a running zombie like halfway through the afternoon. Even Tess was a bit worried of me coming into aid stations because it didn't look myself. It looked a bit gaunt kind of thing. Yeah. But then as the night went on, I started to come back to myself and get back into a zone.
Yeah. And I'm assuming it's that point, that mid-afternoon point, or the bit when you were a zombie, that most people were pulling the plug and tapping out DNF, because you said what, high 70% DNF rate, which is astronomical, isn't it? And
for sure.
Nobody's going into that race under, well, there'll be a few people under trained, but most people are hitting that start line primed and ready to go. So that factor of the heat has been huge.
Yeah.
There's only 17 finished.
Yeah.
Must been like The Walking Dead at one point.
Yeah.
It's a good name for it, the Lost Souls Ultra.
Definitely. It's got that sort of Mexican vibe.
Oh, I like it.
Doesn't it? That sort of Day of the Dead thing. It's got that kind of vibe to it, which I love.
Well, that theme.
Yeah. And you've mentioned a couple of times, Jonny, or we have, and you've brought it in as well, the mental side of stuff. Yeah. You mentioned there about feeling maybe not your best, and Tess was a bit concerned as well. But how do you... There's 2 questions. First question would be, and you can choose how to answer them, how do you mentally prepare for a 100-miler in these type of conditions? And how did it mentally play out on the day? What was in your head throughout the day, if you can remember?
Yeah, so like for me to mentally like preparing for these kind of races, I think it's really important to do your homework. So like take a bit of time, look at the the course. If you can't get onto the course, like step foot on the course, maybe look at old race photos, just see the terrain you're going to be running on. I was lucky enough, I went down for a recce 3 weeks before, and I got to see what I was running on. I was a bit shocked actually at how steep the climbs were, so I'm really glad I actually got down to step foot on the course. But I find for me, having that visualization before a race, especially in taper week, just going over parts of the course in your head can be super helpful, because you know what's coming, and it's a good way for you just to prepare for the race, right? I'm also one that thinks if you just smile when you're running, that can be a huge help. Like, you can trick your brain into thinking that you're super happy doing this, even though you're in so much pain. So definitely I would recommend just try and force a smile when you're out running, even if you're in so much pain. Just smile.
Regardless if that's smiling at somebody, just smiling internally to yourself.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, definitely, right? Yeah. It's all about that positive self-talk, and
totally.
well.
Amanda Woodrow, it sticks in my mind when we were speaking to Amanda, John. You know, that was something that she emphasised. You know, just the fact that a smile can go a long way, especially if it's a reflected human smile. You know, whether it's another runner or a pedestrian or a hiker or something like that, just changes the mindset for that moment, and it can flip you around.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I always remember as well, is that Eliud Kipchoge always runs with a smile. And he was saying that the smile, it's a massive mental boost. I'm smiling, I must be happy. You know what I mean? It's just that sort of thing that's in there. So, and the power of a smile is awesome at all times. Never mind just in ultra running.
Exactly.
At all times.
Yeah.
Oh man, we're hearing this to bits. I'm loving this, man. This kind of chat.
So, Lost Soul 100, you'd recommend it, obviously, by the sounds of it.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
Well organised, well staged, Western States qualifier.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Just saying. Winner 2024, Jonny Wolf. What was the finish line like? Describe it, winning that particular race.
Yeah, so as I said earlier, there was a 50k race on the Sunday. In my head, I thought I'd read that it starts at 8 o'clock, so I was coming in at 7:30 going, oh man, there's going to be such a big crowd, it's going to be class. But unfortunately, the 50k runners had went off at 7 o'clock, so I missed them by half an hour, unfortunately. But there were still loads of crews that were around Softball Valley. Really good atmosphere coming in. And it was starting to get hot again, so literally finished the race, had a chat with the race director, sat down, cracked a beer, and then passed out for 5 minutes. Just my brain was so foggy, and I just needed to close the eyes for a minute, you know.
When did you next get a pee?
So I started peeing again during the night, which was good.
Whilst you were still running?
Whilst I was still running, obviously.
Right, okay. Yeah. Okay.
That was good.
Sorting things out.
When I chatted with Mr. Heggie at Auchterarder, he said, you must get Jonny Wolf to tell you about the Moose Mountain Trail Marathon and the prize. So that suggests another first place. Tell us about the Moose Mountain Trail Marathon, Jonny.
Yeah, so the Moose Mountain Trail Race is just a local event that happens out in a place called Bragg Creek. It's like 45 minutes from Calgary. And they were lucky enough to team up with Saucony Canada this year. And Saucony Canada were giving away a prize to have a free trip to Patagonia with a race entry for El Cruz 100k stage race. So it's a 3-day stage race in the Patagonia around a volcano, and I was lucky enough, and I wouldn't say maybe not lucky enough, but I raced hard enough that I won the race and managed to get myself a free trip to Patagonia in December.
Did you know about that before you started running?
So I'd entered the race, and then a couple of days later they posted that this was going to be one of the prizes. And obviously that puts a bit of pressure. I'm like, right, I'm going to have to run this one hard, right? This was just meant to be a training run before the Lost Soul Ultra, but I went out
2
hard.
weeks out.
2 weeks out, yeah.
2 weeks. Okay.
Yeah.
So marathon distance.
Yeah, 42k. And it has 16,000 meters of elevation.
16,000 meters.
That's not right. 1600. That's not right. Yeah.
That's
Just
a,
straight up the mountain.
pretend it did. Went fucking triple the fucking height of Everest, mate.
Now,
Sorry, I just swore. Oh, trying so hard. No, I swear. Sorry.
we
I
can cut that
emphasised
bit.
a
We can
point.
cut that bit out, the audio version, and Johnny can share the audio version. But
Okay. Sorry.
was it then this trip to Patagonia? Was it a race? Were you competing with somebody? Was it a close thing, or were you making it yours?
Yeah, so like the course, you pretty much start by running straight up a mountain. You get to the top point, you turn around, come back down the mountain, and then you have a 10k loop, which is kind of up and down and up and down. I went in thinking I'm going to use this as a training run. I'm going to just kind of stick in behind the leaders if I can and see how we get on. But I felt so good on the first climb, and after about 6k, I'm like, you know what, stuff this. I'm just going to go for it. I knew it was 15 kilometers to the top, so I got the poles out and started pushing and tried to make a wee bit of a breakaway. And I got to the top turning point in first place, and I was like, that's when you start to see people on the way back down and see how far away you are from people. I was like constantly checking people's numbers, seeing if they're in the same race as me, or if they were doing the 50k run, and I'm like, all right, probably got 5 minutes here on them. And then by the time I got down the hill, I absolutely bombed down the hill. And Tess was at one of the aid stations, and she said, "Oh, you got about 15 minutes on the next place, Skye. So, but just keep on going." So just kept pushing the whole way around the last loop, and yeah, came in first, thankfully.
What a fantastic prize! What was the name of the staged race again in Argentina?
El Cruce. So EL and then CRUCE.
And have you Googled that yet?
I had a bit of a look into it just to see. Saucony Canada reached out as well, asking for a few details as well. So hopefully get a free pair of shoes out of this as well, right?
I sense a sponsorship deal. Come on, Saucony, you can do this.
Yeah, there is. I think we get put into the elite group as well, so it's going to be super interesting just to see how I fare actually against some of the elite runners. They just announced the women's elite team, and there's some great athletes in it in the women's side. So it'll be interesting to see what men are going down to do it as well.
Fantastic, man! Absolutely love this.
Yeah,
I know. It's exciting. That's December, Johnny.
And that's the start of December. Yeah, like super excited about that. It's something totally different.
Yeah, what is something to have on your horizon? Magic.
Yeah.
So if that's December, we're just about hitting October.
Yeah.
How does what happens between now and then? Do you just go running as normal, or have you got a specific training block, elevation, or?
Not really. Like I've never really been one that does like training blocks. Like I said, I'm pretty new to this, so I'm kind of just trying to work out what works for me. I run 6 times a week and try and do 90 to 100 kilometers a week anyway. But I think obviously I've never done a stage race before, so I'm going to have to just look into maybe changing my training a wee bit and doing back-to-back long runs and seeing how we get on with that. Yeah, it's a super interesting one and a totally new venture for me. And I just, we'll see how it goes.
You say you're new to ultra running. What about somebody who's thinking about getting into ultra running? Saying that you're relatively new, that's your words. What advice would you give to somebody who's thinking about an ultra marathon?
I would say go out and get involved. Like look at some of your local races or something that's close to you, and maybe ask if you can volunteer at it if you've never ran one before. It's a good way just to get involved and meet other people that are like-minded and doing the same thing. Or if you have a friend that's doing ultras, see if you can crew for them and try and get involved that way. Is always a good one. Or you can go to your local running store. Most people in the running store that work there are runners, right? So they'll know races that are coming up. They'll know what you need for the race and things like that. So go and shout them, give them a shout to see what works. I went to a trail, like a trail night last night, and it was just like different trail videos, like short films and things like that, just down at the local pub. It was really cool. But one of the phrases that came up was "allow yourself to dream," and I'm like, I love that saying. Like, if you're a newbie, just allow yourself to dream. Don't get into your head, oh, that seems pretty far. It's just 5-10 Ks, right? That's all you got to do. It's easy as that. So, yeah.
We've had guests recently, Stephen, David Adams, Laura Watts, who've done that. Allow yourself to dream big, you know. Take away any barriers up there, figure it out. There's always a way that you can tweak things and make it work for you. Thank you very much for that, Jonny.
I would definitely say as well, like if people are looking for a first-time ultra in Scotland, the Loch Ness one is a really good setup, and it's a really good kind of first ultra to get involved in, because it's that lap system that you're only doing 7 kilometers every time you'll come back to your aid station, you know. So if people are worried about going into the mountains and getting a bit lost or something like that, this is a nice easy 7K loop. You don't have to run for 24 hours. You could do it as a team. You could grab a few friends and do it together. So it's like, that's maybe a really good kind of entry race to do.
Loch Ness 24.
Yeah.
And of course, you can always listen to Young Hearts Run Free podcast that can,
of course,
that can help furnish you with any information you might require.
Light your fire. Yeah. Jonny, we like to ask our guests about their favourite pieces of running kit. Now, we spoke about trainers, but what else do you know leave the house without? Of course, bear spray. Part of it. But what's Jonny's favourite bit of running kit? Yeah.
Like, to be honest, guys, you know it's going to be my buff, right? I take that buff everywhere with me. Yeah, it's so multifunctional, right? You can keep your lugs warm when you're out in the cold. You can put ice in it on a hot day. During the TMB, actually, my pack was digging into my shoulders, so I used it as a pad for my pack. And then, you know, you can stick it down your shorts on a cold day as well, so you don't lose some body parts. So I would definitely say my Young Hearts Run Free buff is my go-to running kit.
And if you're listening and you want one, you've maybe not got one yet, and you're thinking, actually, I'm going to hate to push the button on one of those buffs, we do have Danger buffs still in stock.
There we go.
Get them before it's too late.
I might need to upgrade mine, actually, to be honest. I could do one for my shorts and one for my head. So
double superpowers. I love that.
I'm pretty sure that new shop of yours must be someplace that you can stick stickers to. So we'll need to dispatch you a wee aid pack over.
Sure, send them over with Heggie when he comes over.
Oh, aye.
Now on that, we sometimes ask somebody to hit us with a secret question. And I contacted Martin Heggie, saying, I'm going to speak to Jonny Wolf. What one question would you ask Jonny Wolf? He thought about it for a couple of days, right? And he's come back with, I would love to ask Jonny, what has been the best travelling experience of his life? Your best travelling experience.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. There's been quite a few. Obviously, I have to say, legally, it's meeting Tess when I'm in Australia. But no, to be honest, like some of the trails that I've been able to run on have been really good. Spending the summer in Europe was probably one of the best summers I've ever had. We got to run in France and Switzerland up in the Alps, and some of the trails there are just breathtaking and definitely some of the best running I've ever done. So I definitely say Europe trail running, that's been my best travel experience for sure.
Cool. Thank you very much. I'm sure Martin will be. Martin said he's up to high door waiting to hear this episode. So
I bet he is.
Yeah.
I don't know if he still listens to him out in his jacuzzi in the back garden.
Oh,
that's what he used to do before little ones. That can change things somewhat. But Martin will be getting his butt over to the Alps sometime soon, I bet too. He'll have that on his bucket list, won't he?
Absolutely.
So you could tell actually, because we do. I follow you on Strava. Go get Jonny follow on Strava and on Instagram, because you've got cool photos and cool places, and the Strava maps are usually pretty better than me just going. Well, you didn't get better than going round the inch in Perth, right enough.
Aye,
But
that's it.
you know what I mean. You know, it's so I encourage listeners to go and give you a follow, as well. But you could tell how good a summer you were having. It was coming over loud and clear, wasn't it, John?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Best Insta account this year. Been brilliant.
Is that a new award?
It could be. It could be a new category.
There'll be a few players in that one.
There you go.
Myself included. No, I'm just joking.
Okay, Stevie boy, let's close this up, man.
Aye, we opening the dialect dictionary for this week's word or phrase. Now, Johnny, you've been around. Yeah.
Aye.
You've travelled the world. You've got an accent that reflects that. Aye. Wee bit of mix of things in there. So I am all ears for a Jonny Wolf entry into our dialect dictionary.
Well, I think it's something I picked up in Canada actually, and I suppose it kind of goes with trail running as well, but it's called hockaloogie. I don't know if you've heard of that before, no? So we're like, as runners, we're all really good at like snot rockets, right? But you know, sometimes when that phlegm just doesn't drop and you have to like, this is going to sound gross on the podcast, by the way, but you go, and then just spit, right? So you're like hocking that phlegm into the back and spitting out. It's called hockaloogie. Don't ask me how to spell it though.
It's all right. We'll Google it. Like
Ken,
hock too. Is that a hock too?
Aye, a bit like that. Yeah.
Whoa, that's a different thing.
Ben and Janet, I apologise for the hockaloogie, but hockaloogie, not like that. Going to hockaloogie.
Yeah, in the accent. That works. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant.
So I worked in a snot rocket that you didn't notice there's somebody behind you, and they're like looking down at their shoe, going, cheers, mate.
Yeah. Or you get it down the pack because the wind catches it, right? And you're like, nice. Yeah.
Oh, it's all spitting snotters. Who cares?
That's it, man. That's what running is. Yeah.
Hockaloogie, brilliant.
Hockaloogie. John will be using that this weekend, literally.
10 minutes. Okay. Final question, Jonny Wolf. This time is just flowing in, man. But you'll probably know this by now. We ask all our guests for a song or a track that they can add into the Young Hearts LaBeouf Buff currently Volume 8 playlist. What song or track is Jonny Wolf going to share with Young Hearts Run Free listeners?
So I definitely had a few ideas for this one. Like I'm a big fan of Beluga Lagoon, and Furrow Road is one of my favourite songs that he's got. But I won't go with that. I think I'm going to go sticking with like a Scottish kind of thing. We're going Tidelines, Far Side of the World. It's probably one of my favourite songs and quite apt for right now.
Definitely. And talking about being patriotic, man, that song just hits right in the heart. That one.
It gives you the chills, right?
Absolute belter.
Absolute
belter. Thank you so much for choosing that.
Okay.
And thank you so much for the chat, Jonny. I knew way back, standing between the goalposts in that park in Auchterarder when we met you at the Chilli, that we would one day be having this chat, and it has exceeded what I thought it would be. It's been absolutely brilliant. It's great to hear about the Lost Soul 100 miler. More importantly, it's been great to hear about your travels with Tess and your running, but also how happy you are, man. It's been great to hear that, and it's awesome that you're getting to share that happiness and joy with other people. So thank you very much for being Jonny Wolf. I'm going to hand back over to Stephen to say a final bye-bye.
Yeah, Stephen's just added Tidelines, Far Side of the World to the LaBeouf Buff Volume 8 playlist.
Nice one. Nice one.
Very moment. The people who are in the know to check the playlist out a few weeks in advance, you see, as well. Sometimes we get a wee exclusive. So there we go. Young Hearts Run Free hat. This has been brilliant, Jonny. Thank you so much for joining us, making time in your day over in Calgary. round. It's been awesome to get to speak to you and find out a little bit more behind the Jonny Wolf story, which I think is only just getting started, I must say. We look forward to keeping up with your adventures on your Instagram and your Strava. Keep doing that thing that you do, and these photos for Patagonia are going to be sensational. I know that. So it feels like we're made in the Chile.
That's it, exactly.
Discovering the world. Was the Chile your first ever win? No, you'd won the St. Cuthberts by then.
I won the Dirty 30 and St. Cuthberts Way as well. So
it's always the third one that's important.
Yeah, I think I won Loch Ness as well before that one, so it was actually the fourth
one.
Yeah,
fourth one. That's what makes a runner. Your fourth one. That's what they say,
yeah.
Jonny. That's what they say. No, brilliant, Jonny. Brilliant to meet you. And when the next time you're back over in Scotland, it would be silly for us not to catch up for a few miles. So hoping as well that's not before too long.
That sounds good. I appreciate you guys having me on. It's been good. So thank you.
No problem whatsoever. Our pleasure.
Thanks, one.